It is an incredible time to be alive right now as the non-speaking of this world have a voice for the first time. And their voice is raising human consciousness to a whole new level. I really wanted to have a guest that kind of embodied all of this and was able to really bring thought on this subject to a place that certainly I haven't been able to bring it before. And I came across her page, and her name is Eileen Himel. And her page is called Autism Get in Tune. And I heard just a couple of her videos and I'm like, wow, she knows what's going on. So I asked her to be on the show and she happily agreed. And what we really want to talk to you today is helping take thought a little bit beyond where you may have taken it to before, understanding that we are creating this awareness, this consciousness, if you will, and wonder what is happening to us in humanity collectively because of what we're now understanding with these beautiful autistic individuals. Eileen, welcome so much to the show today.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel honored and blessed to be here, truly. Yeah.
It's so fun. And yet I found out minutes before starting that you're part of like a circle that I already know. It's just so interesting to me that with the millions of people that are on social media, of
Mhm.
course, the algorithm knows how to find me, but I'm always looking for really fresh ideas. Whenever I'm watching videos, I'm looking for something that is fresh and different and taking thought to where it hasn't been before. And your page definitely brought me there. So thanks for being so courageous and putting some really big ideas out there.
Mhm. Thank you so much. I appreciate that compliment because it was no easy feat getting the courage to actually speak what I was feeling.
I
Because
know.
I'm like, "Are you crazy?" But, yeah, I've gotten some good feedback and some not so good, but at the same time, what matters to me is I feel like I'm acting in integrity. Yeah,
You are speaking your truth for sure. Now,
yeah.
you have your master's in mental health coaching, but I know you're not technically an S2C practitioner, but you're well trained with it and you educate through that kind of lens of presuming competence. So
Yes,
you're very
preserving
well
confidence
aware.
intellect, yes, for sure, and
So,
purposeful
what
movement training. Yeah.
and purposeful movement and training. Okay, so and because that has to be embodied into all of this as well too. Now that we are really starting to grasp apraxia and what it means
Mhm,
to our kids, we can understand them at a whole new level that we have not been explained before. I mean, quite honestly, we have been so led in the wrong direction with how to kind of approach these beautiful beings.
mhm,
And it's created a lot of anxiety, both from the parents' part as well
mhm,
as the individual's part, when there should be a more enjoyable experience for everyone involved. Now,
mm,
this is not to downplay at all because I am definitely not one to downplay meltdowns,
right,
extreme difficulties, the screaming,
mhm,
the challenges that are involved because I actually am very sleepy right now because I had to get up so early for a meltdown this morning for my son. I woke
mm,
up to a meltdown. And
wow,
these things are so tremendously a real part of our lives. And I
mhm,
know that they exist and some people want to talk about them, but what I don't necessarily want to talk about that right now. What I want to talk about is kind of like more of the beauty of the journey and
okay,
maybe even add a little bit of purposefulness to the
mhm,
meltdowns if we can actually approach that as well too.
mm.
So what is happening to us collectively? How is humankind changing collectively? And what is it that they're teaching us on a global level?
Wow, that's such a good question. So what they are teaching us. It's such a good question. So every cell is vibrating. I believe and there's a let's say that there's a truth. There's a point of truth and you're either vibrating away from it or you're vibrating close to it. I believe that they're holding the frequency of a vibration of higher truth because
Okay, that just gave me chills because this is exactly what Katie and I were talking about when Katie was on my podcast from the telepathy tapes. Is the
Mhm.
fact that part of the reason they're trying to be silenced is because they're holding on to so much truth that the powers that be just don't want to come out.
Right, everything will just crumble. And it's hard to explain how that happens, but it will because it's the vibration. And,
Yeah.
everything vibrates in resonance. Like, that's why you and I are together right now because we are resonating at a certain level where we were attracted. So they're just going to keep pulling more truth into their vibration. Like, before I was truly in the field of like looking through this lens and working with them in this way, I was not this person. It's like things just started peeling off. I started shedding and it was painful. It was super painful. But yeah,
Right.
yeah, they're holding
Right.
that
But
vibration of
it, but
truth.
it, okay. So what I'm starting to uncover on a really powerful level lately is how I used to feel like I got the short end of the stick because my son's
Mm,
autism was non-speaking. My son's autism was much more challenging, and it is. It's very, very challenging compared to
mhm,
so many other issues. But
Right.
now, as his voice is coming out through spelling, I'm
mhm,
realizing that it's more than brilliance. It's a connectivity.
mhm,
It's an all-knowing. It's like talking. It literally is like hearing from God when he
mhm,
spells the things that he spells that comes out of him, and the fact that they have been so shunned and ostracized and completely misunderstood for generations after generations, and now we're finally saying, oh, wait a second, you have a voice. We want to hear from you. And you know
mhm,
what? They're not mad at us. They're not mad. Well, we
mhm.
tried to explain this a long time ago and you weren't here. No, they are
Right.
unconditional. They are completely
Yeah.
forgiving. They just want to help. They just
Mhm,
want to help. And Katie and I were talking about this with the telepathy tapes pieces. It's speller after speller that
yeah.
has these incredibly beautiful messages of love
Mhm,
and unity and coming together and not holding on to anger. And
Right.
because okay, here's where it is.
mhm,
They were unconditionable. They
mm.
have unconditional
That's
love,
it.
but they could
Mhm,
not be conditioned.
They
And
couldn't. They
so
couldn't show up under
they're
condition.
not going to give,
mhm,
they're not going to do those gestalt. They're not going to do you're not going to do the rote dictation that is what you want to hear to say, hi, how are you today? They're not going to
Exactly.
do that. They're not
mhm,
playing that game. They cannot be conditioned. And if they have a hard, energetic moment, they are going
mhm,
to let it out until
mhm.
they feel better. And then they'll bounce back into the highest vibration that they can possibly reach for.
Yes. Yes. 1,000%. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. It's crazy. Yeah, like we have the motor systems to be able to show up and basically manipulate what's actually going on because that's what we've been trained to do. It's okay, I know that to fit into the box of society and meet those needs, then I have to show up this
Mhm.
way. So therefore I will be accepted, right? And I have a working motor system. So even if I'm so angry, guess what? I can bite my tongue and smile, and you will never know the heated energy that is inside of my body, right? And so you're living a lie, but we've all been conditioned under those ways and we don't even know it. A lot of this is subconscious, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so they don't have the working motor system. They have the brain body disconnect. So they can't just, even if they wanted to, they can't show up in the conditioned way that we have, just as you were saying. They just can't.
That's just it. They're not here to play the game.
Mm-mm.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
S-
Yeah.
Um,
And that's come a lot from
so
me working. Yeah.
no,
Like
please
I
keep
have
going.
to I was gonna say, like, in the beginning of letterboard, whenever I was practicing letterboard, it was like I just wanted to be successful with every client. I wanted to just get them to spell the words and then get to open. And then I had to stop and remind myself they're not here to play the society game. If there is an energy that we're not overcoming, it's for a reason. They're here to either teach me something about my energy or about something that's going on. 1,000%. It's challenging. Like, I'm not a parent of a child with non-speaking autism, so I don't know what that life is like day to day. At the same time, I think we've been very conditioned under the premise of everything should be convenient, and A plus B equals C. Like we've all like created so much resistance to what is. And if this gives any of the parents out there just some kind of like boost of something, meaning anything coming from me, like you were chosen because you are an expansive soul. And that might be too much to say, but I've been given that message over and over again because, I've cried for my clients. There's some of these clients, like the first kid who I ever did letterboard with, I would have adopted him. I loved him so much. Um,
Oh.
and when I came to the realization that he understood everything, and he was saying things like, because people would call him lazy all the time. They would call him lazy, and why do you like him so much? He doesn't work, whatever. He would say, he expressed on the letterboards, I do want to do things. Like he wanted to be a teacher. He's like, but my body won't allow me to. And so I cried
Right.
for this kid. And then one day I got the message. I'm going to say from the divine. You can cut that out if you need to. But it was that
No, it's good.
these kids and their parents, their souls are expansive enough to handle this journey, and they're here for something big. So it's not on, all the challenges aren't for nothing. And they can
That's it.
handle.
That's why I feel, Eileen, that I don't want my son's life wasted. I want to take what he came forward to do and take that message and bring it to as many people as I possibly can. That's why I was here, to spread this. And that's why we get connected. And that's why I randomly come across your page and it just speaks to me in a way that nothing else has. It's because all of us are kind of like pulling up this frequency because of our kids, and now we're all connecting. When you think about even the analogy of the hill, whether or not you believe it is or not, just even talking about the analogy of the hill is to have a collective place where energetically everybody pulls together without language to be able to go and enjoy life in a way that that can't be done in a physical body, especially a physical body that's hurting.
Yeah.
And in those places, I mean, because even in Joey's most horrible meltdown days, he would always have that glimmer of joy in the evening, as I could see he was drifting off to some place, to a place where everybody knew his name. But going back to something else that you said, there is a grading on the curve of victimhood that I feel that in general, and this is not just for autism, this is for illness, suffering, whatever it is in general. There's this kind of comparison of how much suffering does that person have to do versus how much suffering do I have to do? Like that family doesn't have it as hard as I do. So I deserve to be able to do this and they shouldn't have that right because they don't have it as hard as I do. But when we look at where we are on that curve, there are way too many factors for you to ever judge where anybody is on the curve of life. Let's take what we all have in common, the common denominator that all of us have. Sure, collectively, we all have, usually everybody who's listening to my podcast has some relation to somebody with autism, whether you're a teacher, grandparent, parent, sister, whatever it might be. And we have this in common. So that's where we can do some comparison. Well, my child does this, your child does this, and we can have that comparison. But the parts that we don't see is, what about your self-love? Do you love yourself? Do you wake up in the morning loving who you are? Do you have a connection to source energy, divine, God, whatever you want to call it? Do you have that kind of a connection? Do you have a belief that we're not just randomly floating around here, that there's purpose to everything? Do you have relationships? Do you have people in your life who you really, really love and give you that love back? And then you get into, of course, do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food to eat? There's so many different things that we can really look at to judge where we are on that curve. So
true.
What a freaking waste of time to analyze anybody's position on that curve. Let's just focus on, how can I be the best that I can be right now? And how can I reach higher? Because the hardest way to get higher, the hardest way to raise your vibration is to be embodied in the, oh, but this is my reality. It's like we have to reach just a little bit more. And when we do, our kids connect and they come with us because they're typically up there and we're the ones just trying to get up to them. So the higher that we can bring ourselves, our frequency, the more we're bringing them up, then we're pulling them up.
That is so true. You're speaking so much truth right now. And that's a hard one and a tough one because the lives that you guys live is a challenging one, especially in comparison to other people's, right? It is. There's no doubt about it. Collectively, society-wise, we've all been conditioned under victimhood, whether we know it or not. It's a subconscious thing for us to keep feeding that victimhood. Not to say that in some cases you aren't a victim, because a lot of people are, right? But you're either, let's just make it like simple and clear. You're either making decisions in resonance with more victimhood and I'm a victim, and you're going to keep attracting more hard things in your life, or you're making decisions from a resonance of more empowerment and more self-love.
I love what you're saying. And the thing is with perception, which you started talking about earlier, and how we perceive kind of where we are in that victimhood, how relative that perception can make things, because I've talked about this before. So Joey's really making up for lost time. And we listened to a great podcast called History That Doesn't Suck. And we are now on the Civil War. We started pre-Revolutionary War. Then we did the Revolutionary War, which was like horrific. And now we're on the Civil. When we did the Mexican-American War, now we're on the Civil War. And I got to tell you, like, there's not a day goes by that I listen to this podcast where the first thing in my thought is like, I have nothing to complain about. Okay. Like I have really hard days. I have watched my sweet son bloody himself with hitting his head. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But when I think about what these people had to endure and the immense suffering that so many of them had and have to this day in other war-torn countries, have to this day. There are so many countries that are suffering right now and so much. And when I think about, okay, yeah, there might be this or that or whatever it is, but relatively speaking, it's a perception issue. And that's where I want to go back to what I was saying earlier with how the comparison game has to stop. The comparison of figuring out what somebody else deserves. And I'm not saying that we don't want to raise awareness for our needs and our causes, because we do need to raise awareness. But blaming others who are getting services or blaming others who are getting help or finding their way. There was a lot of people that were angry with me because I got Section 8 housing for Joey. Because like, where do I have to live financially for somebody to not get mad at me? It's like, that's it is. It's like everything is this fine line of if you have more than me, then you don't deserve it. If you have less than me, then okay, you deserve it. We have to stop playing this game, because what it's doing is it's just bringing us all down, and it's not helping us focus on getting what our own individual needs are met and raising ourselves to a place of believing that we can have what it is we need. The amount of arguing for our limitations is just like you were saying just a little while ago, is just what's bringing us down.
I think the people who are still arguing for limitation don't understand the detriment of that yet. And that is going to be one of their lessons that they learn in this life or in another life. But I don't think it's your responsibility. I do agree with your point of view on it. It's not your responsibility to change their mind, because people will argue for their limitation and suffering until they understand that they don't need to anymore.
Okay, now that goes to another space. It makes sense, but we got to explore that. So go there.
Okay.
I'm giving you the reins here. Tell them why they don't need to be arguing for their limitations anymore. Oh, please. I love to pass the torch over to you as I take a cool drink of water.
See, this is why I didn't want to start my TikTok page to begin with, because I knew, like, it's hard to say that autism is beautiful because of the challenges, right?
It is so hard to say it. And I've wanted to kick people who said it before, and then I've fully understood it before. So I'm on both sides of the coin. But
yeah, wow.
but life
So
is
you've been
beautiful.
all around it.
And life has challenges. And life is hard.
It does.
So
Yes.
it's like autism is hard. Autism is not hard. Life is hard. Life, it's like it's perception. It's all how we're perceiving it.
Yes. It's all how you're perceiving it. So our perception is always covered usually by some type of energetic charge of some type of emotion or thought.
I got to laugh because having this conversation gave me a hot flash. Okay. So
look at me. I have like hives because I get stage fright.
So you're talking about an energetic charge, and it's like, yeah, I get really energetically charged to the point that my adrenals like completely go out of balance, and my body turns to like 150 degrees. So
good for you for having that awareness.
But okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just was laughing because
No,
I'm
you're
like,
okay.
Give me water.
I know, like I'm like cotton mouth over here, like I need water.
Okay.
But I mean, that's what being a human is. You're always going to be energetically charged. It's knowing that you're the awareness behind that, having that experience, and you're there to ride the wave, right? I felt sick before this interview just because that's what happens to my body. That's what I've been conditioned to do.
Okay.
Yeah, you're very intimidating. You've been very comfortable.
Thank you.
So yes, there's going to be a charge. The charge is going to be vibrating. You can call it positive or negative. If it's vibrating on negative and contraction in your body and, oh, they have this and I don't have this, you're going to get more lack. Like that, it's what they say, the boomerang, what you put out, you get back. When I first started on the letterboards with, I'll say Houston, because I'm sure they don't mind me saying this. He just kept driving that point home over and over again. He said, when a word leaves your lips, it doesn't just stop there. It affects everything around you. And so that's what I've learned. What you put out, you get back. So if you are feeling that way, and this is going to go on the mental health counseling side, there probably is a part of you in there that is a victim that never was heard in a high frequency space, that never was seen or given compassion to. And so it felt it had to harden, it had to fight for what it needed. And so a lot, that's what I'm trying to do right now, is work with parents on tending to their inner space, tending to the parts inside of them that were formed a long time ago that had no place to go, nowhere to turn, and learned that it had to fight or it had to hide or whatever the case may be.
I've seen some of your videos where you talk about embodying the energy. Can you help break it down what you mean by embody the energy?
So we're always embodying a certain energy. Always. You're never not embodying something. You're always holding an embodiment.
What do you mean by embodiment? Explain what that means.
Okay, so in your body, you're holding an energy. Okay. Always. So let's put it on a scale. Let's say you're either embodying trust or mistrust in your journey or somewhere in between.
Okay.
So what embodiment are you holding? I think that's so important.
So that when you're saying embodiment, it's basically about what energy that you're holding on to.
What signal you're sending out.
Okay.
What you're attracting back to you.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So now let's bring back the non-speakers back into this equation. When Joey has to give a message, when we ask him a question and we have a message delivered, and now he's at a point where he's spelling really long sentences, and he is giving us the most poetic, thought-filled, intentional words imaginable. And this is kind of where you started at the very beginning of this, is that what would happen to all of us if getting every single letter out was an effort, to get every single letter out to the point where it slowed us down, to the point where, okay, I'm able to get one sentence out. How can I form it in the most eloquent possible way? You know, and that's why so many of these spellers are, I idolize them. I look at these
Right.
spellers with just such awe, and what the words that are coming out of them is just so tremendously beautiful. So is that what has happened, is that they have spent this lifetime. I've heard this and I've said this before, because I'm ADHD, when someone is talking to me, I'm often already starting to figure out the next thing I'm going to say versus really hearing what it is that they are saying. And now they have incorporated all this listening. They were never interrupting their mind with what they were going to say. They're just listening and
Right.
discerning and
Right.
taking it in and figuring out what serves them and what doesn't and what feels true to their authentic self. And now they are like the masters, because of the fact that they have not clogged their mind with trying to make conditional responses.
Right.
That's it. I mean, you just said it all. Each one of their letters is intentional, like so intentional. Just think of all the time we spend living our lives just playing on repeat because we're just on the hamster wheel, just having the same conversations, going to work just to meet the need of whatever. And their words are actually intentional, actually coming from a point of truth, because
Right.
it's natural for them, I would think. I mean, what
Truly.
else would it come from?
Well, and
Yeah.
then it goes into my new favorite subject, which is unreliable speech. And the reason it's become my new favorite subject is because what I'm starting to observe is how I used to idolize those who had speech before, in the fact of, wow, they're so much better, they're so much further along because they have speech. But then hearing a lot of what they're saying is what was conditionally taught, and they're repeating
That's right.
what they were taught versus who they authentically are, just like the rest of us.
It's a rote
And
conditioned response. It's a reflexive response, and it might not be reflecting what they're truly thinking on the inside. Many times it's not. Many
okay,
times
so
it's not. So it just goes
this is
to
where my
show
mind really
you.
goes. Yeah, keep going, because this is like, I love this
No, I was
subject.
just gonna say it just goes to show you that your motor is not who you are. Like your motor isn't who you are. And like we
Yeah,
have a motor system. A lot of times it's conditioned, it's reflexive, it's impulsive, it's working off of nervous energy or some type of other energy, and it's not intentional. I think what the
yeah.
non-speakers are teaching us and what they're vibrating at, which is resonating in something in us and bringing it out, is the resonance of true intention. Like, I
Okay.
can't tell you and okay, sorry.
No,
What's
keep
up?
going. This is great. This is great. No,
I was
don't
just
let me
gonna
interrupt you.
say, I was just gonna say, just in my own personal experience, and I don't wanna sound like, "Oh, woe was me," or anything like that, but I was a deep little girl. I was a very, very deep little girl. I was always spending time with what I call now God, and, I was obsessed with perception, as weird as it is. Like, I remember when I was like 5, no, younger, because I wasn't even in school yet. I was like asking my mom, like, how do we know that the colors that I'm seeing are the same colors that she's seeing? I was like, so how do
That's
you
a
know
deep.
that like this blue is like the same blue that you're seeing? Anyways, long story short, society conditioned that right out of me because I would have never had friends. So let's see, what point am I getting to here? Um, where am I even going with this? No, what I think was like they brought me back to myself because they were vibrating at that like authenticity point, which I hadn't been. I was the funny girl, I was the silly girl, So it's like I was what society said was cool for me to be, you know? And
Yeah.
I've gone into I had a lot of time, people wouldn't know, but like in depression, a lot of heavy depression. And it was because I had no idea how to find myself. And they really helped me do that. And I think it's just because of the sheer
Interesting.
resonance of being in vibration with truth. And it helped me find
Sure.
me.
But something came up really interesting recently because one of my best friends has a daughter who is speaking. She speaks very well, and she's amazing. I love her so much, and she's in her 20s. And I was talking to her about the subject, about the fact that why is it that what's coming out of the kids like Joey are so different than the anxiety driven language that so many of those with autism how they're speaking. And
Right.
what was interesting is she said, I got to tell you, you're making me think about this now because when
Mhm.
she texts us, she is the most eloquently beautiful texter, and she says the most beautiful things to us through text. But when she
Mhm.
speaks to us, it's a total different language. And
Right.
so now I don't even know what this means yet. Like I'm thinking about this in the
So
fact of,
so what it means is like m motor is just completely separate from consciousness and who you are, like, it's just separate, right?
right.
Because
And
even in this
especially the
conversation.
motor of theirs. I mean, yeah, sorry,
Oh,
go ahead.
yes. No, I was just gonna say, even this conversation, I think that's what I was getting back to, like, my whole motor had played out a whole life of who I wasn't, right? Like,
Yeah,
so in them, it's, like, really, really evident, right? Because 'Cause they're, scripting whatever songs they're scripting, constantly, but then they're typing something else while they're scripting. So it's
right.
like motor can just be, an energetic pattern that is completely different from the energy of purposeful. So that's why I say train purposeful motor, like gain access to purposeful motor, and then all other motor in autistics, it is usually something completely different. Like if you see them just they're responding to energy and it's like
Yeah.
so it's conditioned or reflexive or impulsive, then you have to gain access to that purposeful motor, which is where the person can come out and share their thoughts.
So it's so funny because then in many ways, when you look at it energetically, why did someone like my friend's daughter embody and come out in the way where, okay, now I'm going to speak now. Now I will be conditionable, but now I
Mhm.
will play the game versus Joey's situation is like, yeah, no, I'm not playing the game. I'm going to stay
Mhm.
authentic to who I am. So it's turning,
Mhm.
it's completely shifting the autism where Joey was on the low end of the spectrum. And now
Right.
I feel like the whole thing is boop, like it has gone from
Mhm.
uh, this is where the high vibrational kids are now because
Mm.
they're not conditioned, and then there's those that
Right.
are just still following to, and why is anxiety plaguing
It's
us? Why is all of it plaguing us? Because they still have that disconnect to their body, but
right.
they're trying to play out all that was taught and learned rather than who they authentically are. I hope I said that right.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. It's like their whole like production is like a rote thing that like
Yes.
was conditioned. Like and it was literally because they were probably ABA kids. It was literally physically
Yeah.
reinforced with
Truly.
usually like food or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that's highly reinforcing for the body.
Right.
So and you ask why did they choose to be in that embodiment? I think we all that's a big question, and I think we all have different lessons to learn. So we might not
Yeah.
know that in this human experience,
Yeah.
but I think they all have something to teach us about how we are so highly conditioned in doing just the highly reinforced pattern, you know? Because if we could truly choose, then we would truly choose. Like I would eat super healthy all the time and
Well,
and do all the right things.
and then even in my own life about choice, because if I really could choose to snap my fingers and to have made that my whole experience with Joey disappear, I wouldn't do it. I mean, even with all the difficulties that are there, that created who I am. I wouldn't give that up for anything. I would not be the person I am today with which who is a non-judgmental, who is filled with so much love and compassion. I would not have achieved that based on the people in my childhood that I was experiencing. Yeah, I had nice parents. I'm not saying that, but it was like, it was a very conditional lifestyle. It was very much like you care about what the neighbors think. You care about what people think. And that
right.
turns you into a person who is just fearful that you're going to be out of control because you never learned
That's
to
right.
wing it. You never learned to trust your own intuition. And then you just don't have any coping skills for when it gets rough. And you walk around like, I just need a bunch of boundaries because I don't know how to cope.
You walk around hoping it doesn't get rough because you
Right.
have all these thorns inside that you're walking around and they're really like tender and hot and
Yep.
you're like, I can't touch them. I can't touch them.
Exactly.
And that's conditional love. You're walking this line of conditional love. Like I'm only okay if I'm acting this way, if
That's
I'm meeting
exactly
the
right.
box.
And then heaven forbid something happens in their life that is meant to help expand them and they freeze up because they've lost that control. And so what I'm saying is that Joey helped me become who I am, a person who I like to title myself as master of plan B, because I'm not afraid of the ferry getting canceled. I'm not afraid of there's an accident on the road. I'm going to have to find an alternative route. I'm not afraid of we might miss this, but there'll be another one. I'm not afraid of those things anymore because I've learned that you just have to keep going downstream and eventually that which is meant for me won't miss me. And that what you're supposed to be able to do, it's going to be there for you. And you can have a really joyful life, even with all the obstacles.
I love that. So you're embodying true trust, which you didn't have before, Joey.
I did not have that true trust before, Joey. I didn't. So I love this conversation, Eileen. I'm glad we're friends now. I have your cell. I'm going to text you.
Text me.
I'm going
I
to
need
be
more
like,
friends who get it.
well, I'm hoping this was a hard podcast for a lot of people. I'm concerned. I'm still thrilled that I did it, but this is an advanced podcast. And if it resonated with you, if you feel it, please comment. I want to know who's out there who really gets this because I want to powwow about this information a lot because it's so much more than we've ever been able to allow to take thought. So I'm really excited about where the future of autism in general is headed. And I'm so glad that you're out there working with so many people. And thanks again for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor.
So great. Everybody, we'll be back with you next week. Thanks for joining us.